of the stuff I have, I can go on for quite a while. So my timekeeper, my trusted timekeeper, my beautiful wife, Diane, is sitting in the corner there. And she's going to make sure that I stay on time. So I am here in Mérida on a research sabbatical. My job, my normal job is I'm a professor of dance, performance studies, and new media technologies at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver. So I'm on a year sabbatical from that, but the true story is my wife and I bought a house here and we're going to be living here. So I wanted to introduce myself, or introduce Mérida to my work, or my work to Mérida. And I thought, you know, what better place would be able to do it than at the English Library in Mérida. I was actually hoping that we would have a lot of native Mexicans here as well, because for me it's really important, and you will see with the work that I do, it's really important to have that wide range of people looking at the work. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. My training is from Trinidad into the USA, Boston, New York, where I danced for a number of years. Then went into Germany, danced there for another decade where I met my wife, moved to the UK, and now we just moved here from Canada. So between us, we've lived in 7 different countries, so we move around a lot. So I thought also, I'm going to talk a little bit at the end. That's my book that's on the wall there. And it's a book that it's part of what I'm doing for my sabbatical. I'm doing a quote-unquote book tour. So I thought what I'd do is show you where I got that title from, and the project that enabled me to start working to a certain extent on the book. The book is a whole lot more than this project I'm going to show you, but I took the title from that project. The project was called Project Balka, going west to find east, going east to find west. And it came up in a very interesting way. My wife and I were in Barcelona. And I had been to Barcelona so many times before, but never stayed for more than 2-3 weeks. And it's a fascinating city. And especially also for me, because I come from the Caribbean, we have a huge heritage of Spanish colonialism. So I thought, why don't I come back to Vancouver and write myself a research grant that allows me to stay in Barcelona for more than 3 weeks. You can do this at the university. So I came back and wrote this grant, and I got a 3-year research grant. So I ended up spending about 4 months in Spain, and I thought I knew Spanish history, but I realized I had no idea. I was particularly fascinated with Andalusia. Of course, that whole history of Spanish occupation. So I decided, okay, let's do this project, and this is the project. So if you want to look at my website afterwards, you can see how I'm navigating it. So these are multi-year research projects that I've done. The latest one is this one, but I'm going to show you something from this one because this is where the title came from. Project Balka starts with an idea that Christopher Columbus exploited in his desire to establish a new trade route to the Orient. Columbus calculated that if he sailed west across the Atlantic, he would eventually arrive at his desired destination in the east. Conceptually, philosophically, politically, and aesthetically, going west to find east raises a host of questions, not least about the human urge to adventure, to discover, to take possession of, and to colonize what we find in our paths. It also raises questions about the unanticipated and sometimes unintended results of these adventures, discoveries, and colonizations of various new territories, physical, psychological, and otherwise. And of course, you can see how I thought that would be somewhat relevant to this environment. So Project Balka explores a range of ideas contained within the phrase going west to find east, inverting it and then playing on the inherent paradox of going in either direction to find the other. Also playing on the Spanish and Portuguese word for small boat, barca, the research embarks on a journey of exploration, utilizing comprehensive new research creation methods that question the very platforms it utilizes to disseminate its results, i.e. live performances, mixed media installations, film documentation, mixed mode writings, etc. Most importantly, the research positions contemporary choreographic practice at the center of a scholarly investigation that is framed by our primary research question: how can embodied personal and collective memories be shaped into new architectures of identity and belonging in the form of innovative performance works that speak to wider sections of society? So, because I'm an academic and because I have an extensive professional dance background, the university particularly likes that kind of combination. And they like it because they think they can get the skill of a professional choreographer, the academic integrity of a scholar, and pay for one person. So, what I'll do is I'll show you this film called Ambos Lados, both sides. And Ambos Lados, all of these are actually works from Project Barker. What I do is I collect a host of information. And I work with dancers, I work with regular people, I work with scholars. But the outcome, I can use all that same material to do a film, a documentary film, a live performance, a video installation, a talk, write a book, yeah? So the research process, we call it research creation within the university context. So this piece, Ambos Lados, I worked in Barcelona with one group of dancers. I worked in Vancouver with another group of dancers. And then I brought both dancers together, sets of dancers together in Vancouver, and I made a third piece. So you will see this documentary is somewhat about the entire process.
On Friday, August 3rd, 1492, 6 months after the last Moorish stronghold in Granada and Spain had fallen, and 1 day after an edict compelled all Jews to leave the country or face dire consequences, 3 ships floated down the mouth of the river Tinto near Palmas in Andalusia, southwestern Spain.
I'm sorry, I forgot to say one thing. This is a complex combination. What you're looking at is an adaptation of a 6-channel audio installation and a 4-channel video installation. So if you walk into the room, there are 4 screens. There are 6 channels of sound, and there are 7 languages. If you want to listen to the Japanese, you go to that corner. If you want to listen to the Spanish, you go to that corner. If you want to listen to the Basque, you go to this corner. So it'll be a little bit confusing, but you have to figure out what you want to listen to. And the idea is we play with stereotypes because you don't know who's speaking. And it goes in a cycle. And the sound, 6 channels of sound and 4 channels of video, they're not all the same length. So you're going to see different things and hear different things in the cycle of going on. And you could be in that studio for an hour before you sometimes figure out who's really speaking. Because some of the voices, they're there to trick you.
Gustavo Colletti e sua trupe de 91 estavam achando que trabalho, glória à escritura, além de seus sonhos. Mas eles estavam completamente enganados. Eles achavam que eram vítimas
and pixie dust. Across the street, it was there.
1846, a coat of arms from Prussia.
In 1492, my family had to leave Spain.
1670, Luna Nielsen Roster, a priest, Denmark.
When I say tiny, I mean 175 euros. So it's more of a hammer.
We came to get another field and got out of the car. This was the exact location where some of our ancestors had lived.
日本、日本。私の祖先は侍だった。12世紀頃から上野原を要していき、戦国時代の甲斐武田に仕えた。
Columbus would never reach India or China or Japan,
But his miscalculation opened up an entirely new world,
not the one he or anyone else had ever imagined.
but another, far more problematic and dangerous and unpredictable. Going west to find east would have far-reaching implications for the descendants of the so-called Indios he claimed to have found.
As well as everyone who dared to make the Atlantic crossing.
So, my story in the piece talks about a real story about my situation after 6 years living in Barcelona. Hace 6 años que salí de Chile. Venía del teatro y tenía ganas de explorar en la danza y sobre todo tenía ganas de cruzar el Atlántico. No conocía Europa, me llamaba mucho la atención. Todo lo que me había enterado era a través de libros, de historia, y a nivel de historia de Chile había una influencia muy grande en lo que era todo el tema de la conquista española. Y una de las cosas también era porque era un idioma más accesible, a pesar de que en Barcelona se habla el catalán. Era un idioma que me parecía más cercano para aprender, no se me hacía tan lejano. Y estuve 6 años de manera legal, porque estaba casada, podía optar por los papeles. Y a medida que pasó el tiempo, nunca me hice cargo del tema de los papeles, ni de darle la importancia de qué era estar ilegal o legal. Tenía mucha gente alrededor mío que era ilegal y nunca creo que le tomé la importancia a lo que era estar ilegal.
What language do you speak?
If I had to research my family ancestry back to the 15th century, I need to start it here, on my own body. I need to get closer to the mirror and pay attention to every detail.
Do you still
What do I
have
see?
baggy?
O que eu vejo ali dentro? Eu vejo pele branca, sabe? Eu vejo olhos claros, nariz afilado, dedos longos, como meus braços e pernas. Eu vejo cabelo cacheado, vermelho, cabelo negro.
In 7th century,
Ninguém acredita nisso.
I heard you don't care
Did I
about
imagine it?
in
I think about my grandmother and blue eyes, a big mom of a black woman. I think about my grandfather and his native Indian
Check about
faces.
Benin.
If I go and see it all in the mirror right now,
Shut up.
all of these are also in my body. They make me who I am. This
We
indescribable
moved to
mix
Vancouver in
of
2005.
ethnicities and life
Briefly with the
experiences.
West.
Eu sou o que meu corpo mostra e o que meu corpo lembra.
After years,
Eu sou Tupinambás, Carijó, Bororó. Eu sou Nagô, GG, Bantu. Sou Maceió, Senegal, Lisboa. Eu sou Iraci.
Trying to go as back as possible. Most of my family is from the same place, mostly Catalan and some Valencian. My grandfather was born in an orphanage, but my grandmother, who was known as the crazy one, she always said that his husband, my great-grandfather, was the bastard son of a Roman pope. Trans. My grandfather's name is Trans, and there is a city in Italy that is called Trani. My cousin said that in my great-grandfather, when they give it to the orphanage, he had like a medal, like a big medal, with some patterns that could be from Trani also. So this means that the parents were rich because they put a medal, so they were not poor, and they were from Italy, from Trani.
Mon corps est une carte qui parle de mes origines, de ma famille, de mon pays. Mon pays est à penser, me protège. Mais de quoi? De l'amour, de la guerre, des hommes, des Indiens. Quand j'étais enfant, on m'a mis une armure parce que j'étais trop vulnérable. Et peu à peu, je me suis fait forte. Peu à peu, ils ont conquis mon pays. Ils l'ont colonisé pour l'amener vers le chemin correct. Et je me suis étendue. Et je me suis convertie. Mais je continue à être vulnérable. Les yeux des gens sont des étrangers dans mon corps. Cette boîte, cette prison, contient toutes mes émotions, toute mon essence. Une carte alignée, un pays torturé, une guerre infinie qui a commencé.
Iberriaren historia handia handaratu baita. Badiote Euskal Baleantziek kolonigitzi baino asko lehenago Kanadarretan asaltzan egiten zutela. Ohiko portua Tobago zen. Kolonen bidaietan euskaldun asko egon ziren, ontziolak eta nabigatzaileak. Geroago, udari mertzenario batzuk izan ziren ere, Lope de Aguirre adibidez, eta misiolari ugari. Indiarren eskubideen aldeko eta kolonizazioaren gehiagik uko egin ziren lehen enelariak. Francisco de Vitoria, ere irikoa izan zen. Berarekin, egite eskubidea zizen.
15.378.
En España tenemos dos apellidos, uno que viene del padre y otro que viene de la madre. Entonces, si yo recopilo los apellidos de mi padre, los de mi madre, los de mis abuelos, los de los suyos, se pueden ir entrecruzando y por eso salen tantos apellidos que llegan hasta mis tatarabuelos o más incluso. Entonces, nada, pues digo mis apellidos que son Martín Fernández, Calvo Rodríguez, Rubio Arias, Fernández Rey. Había otros dos más, que uno es de los Ríos, que también es un personaje famoso en España. Y entonces, bueno, me siento muy conectada con mi familia de Galicia. Soy de Madrid, pero mi familia es de Galicia, como digo en la performance. Y nada, entonces busqué uno de los apellidos últimos, que es Arias, viene también de Galicia, y me estuve informando sobre la conquista de América y bueno, descubrí que había mucha gente que estuvo allí y que venía de la casa de los Tres, que bueno, antes era una casa en Galicia con mucho dinero y entonces iban muchos representantes a la conquista de América que tenían este nombre. Y claro, luego pues en las pronunciaciones, como se ponen los nombres en las ciudades o ríos y tal, pues ellos pidieron su nombre, de ahí viene mi historia.
The First Nations of this land were already here. 500 years ago, the Europeans came. They tried to take over. They tried to displace us. They came to find the East, but they found us instead. This new world is not so new. We've been living here for millennia. Shemitis, the one half of me and Ailey was massacred the other. Malgré les conflits entre les Français et les Américains, entre les Anglais et les Européens, entre les Français et les Anglais, les Français se sont unis avec le peuple Huron, qui a créé nos ancêtres, les Métis. We saw white men first married in 1707 when the English settled here.
Pertenecemos a una historia Hoy me dijo mi mujer, ustedes se van a ir todos de aquí. No son de aquí. Tú eres diferente, tienes ojos claros. Pero los demás que se vayan, que acá estamos viviendo en la calle. Nos están probando todo.
So, 11:23, I'm not doing that badly. Maybe we could take a few questions and maybe I can see how the exchange goes so far. There's a whole lot of more information I can give you, but I want to hear if there are any questions right now. Or if you want me to continue going.
You continue.
Continue? Okay. I can do a couple of things. I can read the beginning of the book so you get a sense of where this book is going and how it's linked to that title. I won't read much, but I'll start from the beginning. Okay. This is the prologue. And these are 3 quotes that I start the book with. To have a mind is to have the ability to reason and to be sensitive to reasons in thought, feeling, and action. Second quote. The Tibetan word for mind, which is Sem, covers not just the realm of thought, but also that of emotion. And the third quote. In our direct and immediate awareness of the body, we know it primarily through the various tactile sensations involved in any activity of touching something. So those 3 quotes is to sort of give you a beginning. I'm interested in the tactility of the human body, the mental capacity and the emotional capacity as a totality. Beginning with a prologue and ending with an epilogue, between which are 7 chapters and multiple scenes that function as intermissions, interruptions, and resumptions in a dramatic play. I am suggesting that this book functions as a kind of performance. The links to my online website archive, where much of the dance material being discussed here can be witnessed by the reader, helps to support that idea. However, the book is also a scholarly document where the 3 acts with their 7 chapters knit together a set of arguments concerning relationships between dance, choreography, and performance, and the search for and generation of new knowledge. The idea here is to combine my extensive background as a professional dancer and choreographer with my academic scholarship and an enduring interest in transdisciplinarity as a coming together of what may seem as disparate ideas, but which, to me at least, permits a better understanding of dance and choreography as practices that allow us to claim embodied knowledge. My research methodology is transdisciplinary and transcultural in nature, meaning it draws on approaches from different disciplinary and culturally specific constructs to explain how the movement of bodies in space-time is analogous to the unfolding and or initiating of a thought process. Why transdisciplinarity? because it suggests that there is a larger knowledge field that, for valid reasons, was divided up into different disciplines, which unfortunately resulted in a loss of important connections between them. It also suggests that the Cartesian strategy of separating things of the body from those of the mind contributed immensely to the opening and subsequent widening of these gaps. In Roberto Poli's words, quote, "The task of transdisciplinarity is to bring to light, to make visible the usually hidden links among the various disciplines," unquote. Transculturality, on the other hand, suggests a hybridity that is often the norm for those born into colonial and post-colonial societies. Hence, an eye towards disciplinary reconnection, holistic thinking, and cultural complexity is necessary in order to understand how practices that emerge from such communities and the bodies that perform them can and have contributed to the development of contemporary dance and performance discourses worldwide. The writing style of the book, therefore, is at times autobiographic and at other times critical in a scholarly sense. This is deliberate.
Can I ask a question about what you just read?
Yes.
Are you saying that the person who's doing the dancing is part of, is there's also a cultural bent to this?
Yes. I think very often when you are educated within a particular, let's say, a colonial context, you begin to see the world from that context. And sometimes you are forced to abandon the environment or the cultural background that you come from or belong to. And colonization is famous for doing that. So I am saying that it's important for us to explore that area of ourselves, because at the end of the day, at least for me as a choreographer, as I said earlier, movement is the process of a thought unfolding. So everything that you do in terms of the body, in terms of gesture, is very important. So if you're taught something external to that environment, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're forced to give up the natural place, that natural cultural environment you're in, that's no good.
The natural cultural what?
Environment that you brought up in.
Professor Daniel, so what's it like being in Vancouver? Have you taken in Asian influences? Now, are you here because it's the winter in Vancouver now? Are you here because of that?
Okay, I give you a
Two things, the Asian and also the weather.
I'll expand that. As I mentioned earlier on, I'm not sure if you were here, between my wife and I, we've lived in 7 different countries. I speak German, and sometimes there's certain things I actually think in German. I had in my upbringing in the Caribbean 3 languages: Spanish, Latin, and French. That's what we were taught. So, growing up in that environment, I wrote examinations that were sent to the University of Cambridge. They sent our exams down to the Caribbean, we wrote them, and they were sent back up to the UK to be corrected. So, in a sense, and of course, the American influence is pervasive everywhere. So in many ways, I was brought up in an environment that in one way allowed me to get a perspective of these places. But when I turned up in those places, I didn't belong there. And it was made quite apparent to me by those people that I didn't belong there. Or I had to learn their way of being in order to belong. So then the question of identity becomes very important. The question of culture becomes very important. Now the title of the book is Re-Choreographing Cortical and Cartographic Maps. What does that mean? Cortical mapping is the process by which the brain maps every single thing you do. Every gesture I make, the brain makes maps. I know exactly how far to go to do anything. Any feeling, any emotion, any gesture I make, they're maps in the cortical structures of the brain. But then we have cartographic maps. That's movement in space. So it's very important in terms of my identity and where I go, where I belong. I am trying to re-choreograph my being in those spaces and re-choreograph my sense of space and body movements, and as a result, my identity. So, in other words, I'm getting to know me and the more deeper layers of myself as I get to know my environment and the people I interact with in those environments. And to do that, one gets a better sense of one's own self and the environment that one is. Does that answer your question?
So it does help to get out of there once in a while.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I want to talk about this project. As you can see, it was a while ago, and I'm talking about this project because that's where the title came from. But the latest project, or the one that just finished, is called Nomadas. And I'm asking the question, what is a contemporary nomad? How many languages do you speak?
Oh, I work on Spanish all the time, and you know, that's a quick answer.
How many countries you live in?
I maybe 20.
Okay.
And visit.
Okay.
Yeah, read.
I'm going to ask you a stupid question that people always ask. Where are you from?
Not far from Vancouver, actually.
Where are you really from?
Well, Earth citizen. What can I tell you? Earth citizen.
Okay, and that's the question I ask in this project. What is a contemporary nomad? Because everything that I'm asking you and that you're describing is, in a sense, relative to the term contemporary nomad. You belong in so many places. But where do you actually be? I mean, it's a simple question that people ask, and it usually is followed up by where you really belong, where you really from.
Well, I think the whole world is creating a new situation. As long as we can travel, and as long as we can, we are stuck actually being around people who are different because of trade and slavery and such. So we have to get along. We have to make the world new, and we can only go forward. So it's a work in progress for all of us. We're all in a new world.
And I do thanks for answering the question.
I want to say something. It's not a new world. We are some people here that we are not really young. I mean, we don't belong to the new world. But we have a very, very nomad history. I mean,
We're complex characters.
No.
Yeah. And it's enriching. I mean, when I met you, and it's an interesting situation, Alicia, I don't know how many of you know her, but Alicia and her husband France, they have a wonderful studio. How would you describe that studio? Leather making studio?
Artisan, I am a shoemaker.
Yeah, but she's more than a shoemaker. You know, and she started talking, and we realized, wait a minute, she speaks German. And then we started speaking German. And then we started talking about so many other things. And that, my wife and I have found, is so common here in Mérida, that it's enriching, it's complex, and sometimes it's confusing. But that's the nature of a particular kind of modern individual. I don't know how many passports how many of you in this room have, but I have 3 passports. And the country I was born in, that passport is I mean, I haven't renewed it. So it's complex, but it's fascinating, and it's interesting, and it's problematic, but it's also enriching. So I think you answered your own question. I think. Did you want to say something more, Alicia?
No, just that is not new. We have the idea that migration is new. But everybody migrates. want to manage it or not be the government. It's not possible to manage it. This is everybody neglected. And this is, if the government want it or don't want it, the borders are just physical. We go where we want to go. And not just be France, animals and everything. That's unbelievable.
I give you.
It's new.
It's not new. You're absolutely right. It's not new. I'll give you a short contextualization reading from the book again, because I'll just read another page. So I'm talking about what the book is about. I begin with a hypothesis, which claims that human beings are cognitively embodied through their own lived experiences of movement through space and time. The spaces we inhabit and the practices we engage in are documented through cortical and cartographic maps. In short, as we inhabit and move through spaces, our brains organize our experiences into unique cortical and spatial maps, which eventually determine how we see and deal with, i.e., how we become subjects in a world that we can help create. This hypothesis is foundational to studies in embodied cognition, the 4 E's, so to speak: embodied, embedded, extended, and inactive cognition. So I'll move a little bit further on. Cartography is the discipline that deals with the conception, production, dissemination, representation, and study of maps of geographical territory, while cortical mapping is the method by which the brain, through the spine and the peripheral nervous system, dynamically represents relationships between the body and its movement experiences in space-time. Since this representation is an internal process of the brain that organizes and interprets space-time relationships, we can say that the human body, moving through space and time, presents an opportunity to claim the information in those spaces as personal knowledge. Thus, if dance is the intentional movement of bodies that leads to an experience in space-time, then choreography becomes the deliberate organization of those movements into coherent and meaningful structures towards some specific goal. In other words, movement is analogous to the unfolding and/or initiating of a thought process. And through dance and choreography, that simultaneous unfolding and initiating becomes an opportunity to understand and therefore claim the knowledge that is in the body as well as in the spaces through which it travels. That's the thesis of.
So I understand this at an intellectual level, but I want to understand how you take that and put it into movement.
Okay, good. The whole video that I just showed you shows exactly how
it's dense.
It is dense, but when you see a dance performance, you take it in kinesthetically.
Yes.
It's there. Yeah. And there's a difference between a verbal, intellectual communication and a kinetic appreciation. Yeah. So dance does that. And sometimes we say, you don't have to, dance is without words. You don't need words to understand it. Because somehow the kinetic information, the emotional information is there. But it's very important, since I give you a structure. Yeah. Part of what I'm looking for is how you put your story into that structure.
The viewer's story.
Yes. So when you look at this video that you saw, what was going through your mind?
I was trying to figure out a lot of different images and how they related. And to be honest, it was dense, and I was having difficulty trying to connect one scene to the next scene.
Okay. So you were looking for a quote-unquote logical.
Not necessarily logical, but just some images or some understanding that could bring me along.
Okay, let me show you something.
Okay. I'm the simple.
How does this piece hit you?
Okay.
I knew I was going to start going through things that I didn't plan.
Ships floated down the mouth of the river Tinto near Palace in Andalusia, southwestern Spain.
very good work. Quite impressive. Almost like a gymnastic performance, so you kind of like watch every little movement. Did she make it a 10 or was it a 9.5 or was that even more? Yeah, no, excellent, thank you.
We can share some experiences. How did you feel it?
I felt there was an interior emotions, some sort of a struggle, and there's an implied relationship with the sculpture because she does those same movements and imitates her gestures to it indirectly. I didn't quite understand. I don't know what that sculpture, whose is it, whatever. I couldn't place it, so I didn't know the relationship. It seemed like it was her. It was a reference to another part of herself.
Anyone else?
I took it to be a sort of an embodiment of perfection or a primordial movement that she was in the moment doing her best to or recreating for us.
I think it's, in some ways, we all see it so differently. It's not a thing about what it should be, it's how you personally interpret it. I may see it completely different from my eyes what you see. And it's not about telling you what it is, it's what is it giving you personally. You don't have to interpret it. You just have to feel something. Does it give you something or it doesn't? But there's not an actual story when you look at a choreography to say, I'm feeding you this. This is what you see it differently to how I see it and everybody else in this room, and that's good. It shouldn't be what you expect, an expectation.
I guess what I'm asking is, as the choreographer, how do you guide yourself to create something that people will have lots of interpretations for? Because I agree, it should be that way. But as the person creating the piece, how do you take your cultural ideas, you know, and you may also create in a way that's non-linear and not, you know, I don't know, this to that. But I'm just trying to understand that process because I go through that process and I'm trying to understand your process, I guess.
Good. What you said in the beginning was perfect. How you apprehended the piece. This is the square, Plaza de Frederic Mares in Barcelona. The statue is this big. It's at the back of the square. And years ago, I went to Barcelona and saw it. And I took pictures of it. And then I went back to Barcelona several years later. The park was overgrown. It was closed. You couldn't get into it. And it was overgrown. And I saw this little statue. And I thought in that moment, my God, look at the bars. I thought, it's like this woman in this cage. And she wants to get out. Because that's how it hit me, having seen it before, where I could go into the park and enjoy that beautiful sculpture. And then years later, seeing the park overgrown with this little sculpture, and I thought about, if that were a woman, or if that were me, how would I feel? But the passion was so much I needed to write music. I mean, this music is just absolute. And it has the depth, and this dancer, she's amazing.
Yes.
The thing is, it's a quarter of what she conveys you will get of this video. You have to see it live. And then there's an immediate connection between you, dare I say, as a woman, and seeing this body dancing with her. So that's how it affected me. It affected different people in different ways, but there was an emotion conveyed. And then we start asking ourselves if we want to. I'm alive, that's my emotion, I feel, yeah. So again, it's the relationship between myself as a choreographer and you as an audience. I want to share something with you, but you have your own background. You have your own experience, and I want you to bring that into the space. The same way I ask the dancers to bring that into the space when I work with them. So it's a sharing of experiences, it's a realization of the depth and the complexity of our own emotional states. It's a work of art, I hope.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes.
It's the thing, and I often imagine what it would be like if we all truly, like right now, this desire just to stretch the body. The body feel just let ourselves free. And I think for me, like as an international human being, as a global being, or one, we're always connected. And I'm understanding and I'm realizing that language has become, for me, in my reality, a little bit redundant. Because there's so much you can communicate with how you feel, of how you move your body, and especially if you know, whether there's many English speakers, the non-Spanish speakers here, but there's so much in just energy and vibrations and feelings and senses, and we start to feel beyond thought, and like the universe, there is we get to experience a whole new dimension. And I feel so passionate about dance and movement and body and just stretching out, because I've lived my whole life in a cage and I wasn't allowed to stretch.
Did you see her body?
I did.
Did you see her?
The dance is so there.
Do you feel the energy coming out of her?
Oh yeah. It's beautiful, and just the joy of being human and feeling the body. That's it. For me, at least, that's my experience.
I mean, we only have 7 minutes left, but you see how, I mean, I have so many projects that I'd love to share. And one of the things is I would love to present this in the original 4-channel video, 6-channel sound installation, but also the live performance. You know, because the live performance is something else. But it's so good to start hearing your voices, and if it's possible, maybe, as I said, my wife and I are here. The book is there. There's a 30% discount if you want to buy it. It's an expensive book, but there's a 4-minute for you to fill out if you want to purchase it. And I hope we can see each other and share some more of that work.
What are you doing in Mérida? How long are you here?
Okay, as I said, my wife and I just bought a house here.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's right near to Avenida Colón.
Who is your wife?
Diane, we were both professional dancers.
Okay, very good.
So, she is also a Pilates and gyrotonic instructor.
Okay, very good.
So I'm on a sabbatical tour, but actually that is pre-retirement. So the university is paying me for this pre-retirement tour, but I've decided, that's why I bought a house there that I want to live in. So I'm not planning anything huge. In fact, I go to Germany to do a new production this week on Thursday evening. And then a production in the Pforzheim for the Stadttheater there, and then I come back last week of December and to oversee the renovations of this house.
So you couldn't take another winter in Vancouver. You could not do it.
Well, I mean, Vancouver, Munich, Freiburg, Breisgau, Münster, Winchester,
I get it.
Boston, New York.
But
Those are the
Vancouver-
places I've lived.
Yeah, I get that. But Vancouver is a cold place. I wonder how you deal with it and how you dealt with it, and if you're making the transition well.
Well, I would, as I said, I'm still a professor at the university there. I went to Vancouver because of the job.
Vancouver is not cold.
Vancouver is not very cold. If you go to Boston or Chicago, that's cold.
I just want to, I'm not a dancer, and so I just want to understand, I think what it's evoking in me is, for me as a musician, one of the things I love to do is take other musicians that are very passionate about, whatever genre that they play in, and come together and make intuitive music. And so, how I feel about that is I feel that then the performance, because it's spontaneous, very intuitive. And it sounds to me, Dr. Daniel, is that what I shall call you? It sounds to me that one of the things that's very important to you is to bring your whole experience and essence, evoke the experience and essence of the dancer to come together to evoke the experience and essence of the audience on an individual level. Would that be right?
You put your finger in it. You're talking about
cool.
collaboration.
Yes, holistic collaboration. I love
So
that.
I think that's it because, as a choreographer, one of the things that is so important for me and others is we're creating on people's bodies. We're sharing that information. They're exposing themselves to me. I'm exposing myself to them. We're trusting one another in space. And that takes time.
Sounds like an amazing experience and looks like an amazing experience.
Yeah. And if we don't have that relationship, how can we then affect the audience? So we want to share our experiences and say how important all those experiences are.
There was a piece of plastic or some kind of device or object that was in some of these pictures. White, it was odd shaped or flowing shaped. What is that, please?
Okay, so that's the last question I'm going to answer because we're running out of time. It is one of the dancers that I work with in Barcelona. When she came to the audition, I noticed her back. Because in auditions I do voice, I do movement, and I noticed her back, and I said, "Is something wrong with your back?" And she said, "Yes, I had scoliosis as a child." And she says, "I used to wear a back brace. That is the back brace, but we used it in the piece as a, ¿cómo se dice?
Corset.
A corset, but also as an armadura. A coat of armor. You know, when the Spanish, they have this coat of armor. So it becomes very symbolic to the piece.
Like shackles.
It's like when you go to war, you have an armor. But the armor is to protect you.
That's it.
Yeah. In her case, it was to straighten her back. And I thought, when we worked together, what an amazing, so I asked her to bring it in because she'd stopped wearing it. And it became very focal in the piece. You can see it.
Wow, is that the go?
There is, you can go to the website and see all of this. But that armadura became a symbol not just of her vulnerability and looking at her body and her back, but it became a symbol of colonization. The armadura, the coat of armor, all the conquistadors had them. Unfortunately, we have to stop. So I would like to thank very much Scott as I said, the book is on sale. There's a 30% discount on it if you want to purchase it. It's there. And you'll certainly be hearing more about what I plan to do here. Muchas gracias. Señor, ¿tu nombre?
Esteban.
Esteban. Okay.
Gracias.
Hasta luego. Sí.